Okay, we're live.
Welcome, everybody, to the Pistons Talk podcast on YouTube. We're live every Sunday and Wednesday. Well, almost every Sunday and Wednesday at 7:30. Either way, I'm your host, Lance Caprosi. Follow me on Twitter at Lance Caprosi. My co-host, Anthony, you can find him at Pistons Talk across all social media platforms. If you're not following him already, you need to follow him. All right, let's get this started. So, that game against the Raptors, it's embarrassing when you're watching your favorite team at home and one of your guys is at the line. And let me remind you, they're at home and they're at the line and the crowd is booing them. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I don't know what to do about it. I can't make it to LCA for every Raptors game. I'm counting on the city of Detroit and the Pistons fans of Detroit to never let that happen again. It's embarrassing.
It's been going on for years. But yeah, it is kind of embarrassing. Like everyone from Windsor comes down to the games, and it felt like an away game for a little bit because like there's more Raptors fans there than there were Pistons fans. But knowing the Pistons, they probably hiked up the prices just for this game just because it's the Raptors.
I know it's been going on for years, but the Pistons have been winning. Like, I don't think I've ever heard the boos that loud before. I was hoping the Pistons, like Jaden Ivey, tied the game just to silence them. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm rooting for Ivy to silence the crowd at LCA. But again, it was so filled with Raptors fans. I was thinking about this. Anytime the Pistons are hosting the Raptors, like the people at LCA that do the tickets and stuff should send out a survey before you buy your tickets. They should ask you, like, hey, would you want LCA to sell ketchup flavored chips? And if they say yes, don't sell them a ticket, because then you know they're from Canada and they're there to root for the Raptors.
You know, it's funny. I remember reading an article a few years ago when the Raptors had Kawhi that Masai Ujiri used to get multiple party buses and pay for tickets to LCA to overtake Little Caesars Arena, and there it would just be a barrage of Raptors fans chanting "We're the North," and it's crazy. Like I think it's cool though that they'll travel all that way to go watch their team play, but at the same time, if you're a Pistons fan and you're like if you can hear it on TV, just imagine what it's like at LCA because you know how loud LCA gets. Like John Mason couldn't even freaking like out scream the Raptors fans on the PA. Like that's how loud they were.
I completely forgot about John Mason in this game. Like usually I'll listen for him, and I'm like, because when you hear John Mason, just like you hear Blaha or Kessler, it just kind of brings you back a little bit. And for some reason in this game, I completely forgot about John Mason because I was so just distracted by the sounds of the Raptors fans. And I'm with you though. I think it's pretty cool that they support their team that way, and that's really cool that Masai would do that, get some party buses. Like, I'm jealous. I just wish we didn't live that close where it happened to Detroit fans. It sucks. Like, I don't even care if it happens to the Lions. I care if it happens to the Pistons. I don't care, the Red Wings, Pistons don't happen to them, but the Lions, I don't care if another team shows up. But against the Pistons, I hate it. I hate it. It hurts.
Man, Red Wings fans are so loyal. I was watching Anaheim Duck game yesterday, and there were more red jerseys in California than there were Anaheim Duck jerseys out there. Like Red Wings fan base is like I've always said they're like the San Antonio Spurs of like the NHL. It's crazy how many like you could be. It doesn't matter what state you're in. You see a sea of red jerseys. It's so cool to see.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of the Red Wings fan base. I really wish that's what the fan base for the Pistons was. Pistons fans are great. And I'm not calling anybody out, but the Red Wings fan base is the ideal fan base for a sports franchise. They are, like you're saying, they're loyal. You see those red shirts everywhere. You know that flying wheel, what that represents. That is just so cool. Red Wings fans are the absolute best. But I want to open this up, and they don't have to answer it right now, but what are people watching? Like, what would your thoughts be, or how would you fix, the situation with Raptors fans coming to LCA? You can open it up. We'll let you say things. If something's funny, Anthony might post it or something. I don't know. We'll see. I doubt we can get anybody though. We'll see. Let's see if we even get one person to send us something that we can post. But
I don't really think there's anything you can do about it. I mean, if they're paying for a ticket, LCA is not going to say no to like free money.
I know, but I just wish they would.
I think one thing you could do is you got to have Hooper out there more engaged. Like if he sees a Raptors fan, he just has to. I can't remember the mascot's name for the Denver Nuggets, but he is probably one of the biggest trolls in the NBA. Like he'll straight up just get a pie, and if he sees like let's say there's a Bucks fan at a Nuggets game, he will just storm that pie in their face.
Is
Just
his
like
is it Crash? Is that his name?
it might be. I'm not 100% sure, but like just YouTube like how savage like the Denver Nuggets mascot is. Like he just doesn't care. Like I love Hooper. Hooper's really chill. Like Hooper's not that type of like mascot where he's just screwing with somebody.
But that's a great idea. Embarrass them, and put them on the jumbotron so they fear coming to LCA, even though they want to watch their team play. That's what Detroit needs to do. That'd be great. That's embarrass them, Anthony. You're a genius, man. Anthony came up with that. He wants you to embarrass the Raptors fans.
Like literally, man. Like you could just troll Canadian fans easily. Like instead of like having Nathan's hot dogs at the arena, and you have Kowalski's.
That is awesome. That is awesome. We can move on though, because we got no news. Well, we got no news, right? Nothing's going on this week.
Nothing crazy. No, I mean we can kind of address the Bojan stuff to kind of clear the air
Go
if
ahead.
you want. So um, there was a report from Jake Fisher's podcast. I believe his podcast is something like "Don't Arrogate" or "Don't Aggregate," something like that. That's what his podcast is called. He had Mike Curtis actually on a couple of days ago, and they were talking about Bojan. Bojan can't be traded because he just signed an extension. So even though there was a report from NBA Central saying that the Pistons are getting calls from other teams, he can't be traded until the summer. So I don't really understand why you would want to trade him anyways right now.
Yeah, I kind of fell for one of those. I guess I didn't know what were you telling me? What month was it that he can officially be traded at? What
During the summer, he can.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not going to get into too much. I don't want to see Bojan go. We talked about it on the podcast. Who would be the most likely to be traded? I mean, if he was available, yeah, it would make a lot of sense to trade Bojan because he's playing out of his mind right now, but he can't be traded till the summer. So we're not even going to talk about it or bring it up. It's not that big of a deal.
No, not at all. I think that if he did sign his extension, then yeah, there would be some red flags there. But at the end of the day, the Pistons are going to start having to keep talent. You know, you can't just keep signing people and then try to flip them for the highest dollar. Like you're going to have to start, building a foundation eventually. And I do think the Pistons are going to try to turn this around sooner than later because they've been rebuilding. This is going into year 4 now.
Yep.
I think with all the cap space that they could potentially have 60 million in cap space this summer. I think they're going to turn a page sooner than later.
Yeah, that's a great point by what you're saying. Starting to build the foundation, year 4 of the rebuild. Let's keep some players, not flip them. Excellent point. I'm not going to say any more on that because when this podcast airs and when people get done listening to it, that point I want them to take away from it. Isaiah Stewart, he's out 2 to 3 weeks. This sucks. Sprained his right toe against the Raptors. I was holding my breath when that happened because at first when he hit the board, I'm thinking I thought he planted wrong for a second and that's what it looked like before he crashed into it. And then he looked down at his knee and I'm like, okay, it's not bleeding. And then he took that limp and I'm like, God dang it. This sucks. It's the worst news. But are you expecting Jalen Duren to start in his place or do you think they move Sadiq Bey back to the starting lineup?
I think what they'll still try to do the 2 big lineup with Bagley and Stewart, but I think they'll probably move Bagley to the 4 and Duren at the 5. But it was so fun. it's not funny that he hurt himself, but it reminded me when I was in high school, just the way he like looked at his knee, but he sprained his toe. There's this guy I remember we were on our way to homecoming, and he like crashes into the cement. His head's gushing blood, and he's like, "Ah, my knee." Like that's what it reminded me of because like he's like grabbing his knee, and I was just like, "Oh, he hurt his knee." Everyone's like, "Oh, maybe it's like what happened to Bagley. Maybe he did a a MCL sprain." But it's just a sprain on his right toe, and a 2 to 3 week timetable I think is positive news if you're a Pistons fan because he could have been out multiple months if it was a real serious injury. And it just looked like he crashed into like that like landing part out. It was like the landing part of out of bounds. I believe he like crashed into. I have no idea what happened. All I know is he was eaten against the Raptors. Like they just had no answer for him.
I know, and I had him on my fantasy team, and then I watched that. I'm like, damn, why? You had 9 and 4, I think, with like 2 blocks at the time, and he was feeling it from the outside. I hated that. I hate, for selfish reasons, I hated that injury. Selfish reasons being a Pistons fan, number one, and number two, having Isaiah Stewart on my fantasy team eating against the Raptors. Yeah, I'm selfish. Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks though, dude. I think he's gonna be back in 2 weeks though. He's a tough guy. I also do find it funny now that you're right. It is a toe injury, but he did look at his knee, and then he was limping hard on that knee. And like I said, I was holding my breath, but I'm glad he's fine. But back to my question though about Duran. I want to throw this out to you. Would it surprise you or would it make sense to start Nerlens Noel and keep Duran on the bench to let that second unit now that Sadiq Bey has been is going to be coming off the bench with him to let that second unit gel? Would that make more sense or just go in with Duran as the starter?
I mean, if you want a two big lineup and to experiment that, I think it makes more sense for Duran to start because eventually what they want to do is have Duran at the 5 and Stewart at the 4.
Okay.
So they'll probably put Bagley at the 4 and Duran at the 5 because I think ultimately that's their goal. They want Duran to be the center of the future because he does have 2 more inches on Isaiah Stewart because he is 6'10. He's 250. I think they view him as a building block going forward. And I know, you've mentioned him as a comparable to Dwight Howard
Yeah.
several times on this podcast. So is Pistons fans. I mean, he's just breaking records at 18 years old that he just shouldn't be. Like he's such a unique player, and I think Noel and Bagley want to talk about no spacing.
Yeah, and that's the other part where I was thinking about it as I was writing it down. I'm like, yeah, but man, if Noel starts and they want to keep the second unit, I get that. You want the second unit to gel if you are going to go that route, but dude, the spacing is terrible. And Cade struggled from the outside. Ivy, he's a little inconsistent from the outside. You got Bojan, but man, you're clogging the lane. You got, yeah, it really, I mean, but even Duran and Bagley isn't really that great. There's not a lot of space between those two either.
No, it's not. I mean, Bagley did hit a three, I believe, against the Raptors, but that's not really his strength. He's not a stretch four. I
Yeah.
think if they do want to go with this two big lineup, you're going to have to find a guy that's a stretch four. Like Stewart, eventually they want him to turn into that stretch four, but that's still a development. I know they're really stubborn about having this two big lineup. And so far, it's an experiment. If it works and it translates to wins, great. If it doesn't, then you can move on. But you're probably going to see Duran at the 5 and Bagley at the 4, and Noel off the bench at the 5 because now you're thin again
Yeah.
because now you're down one less big. Like as soon as Bagley gets back, Stewart gets hurt. So the injury bug is obviously staying in Detroit.
Yeah, the injury bug sucks. And yeah, I'm with you though. I think they do start Duran. I mean, is there any way though that maybe we get a completely different lineup? Let's say we get Bagley at the 5, and then we get Bojan at the 4, but they want to keep Sadiq Bey on the bench. Who do you think? Do you think they would do that, or do you think that they go strictly with either a Bagley Duran combo or a Bagley Noel combo? Or is there any chance that you see that they go some other type of combination in the starting lineup?
So I was thinking a whole nother combination. Thought about this, I think, right after we stopped the podcast on Sunday. I was thinking they keep Ivy at point guard, obviously, because Kate's still out.
Yeah.
You put Alec Burks at the two, which is his natural position. You leave Bojan at the three. You have Bagley at the four and Dern at the five.
Okay, yeah, I like that. More shooting. I thought about trying to get Alec Burke into the starting lineup as well, but I was thinking maybe even putting Bojan at the four, Burks at the three, and then I guess I just assumed they'd roll with Killian and Ivy. I thought maybe something like that. And then, because I'm still thinking keeping Sadiq Bey on the second unit. I'm not talking about starting him because I like him off the bench, and we'll get in that in a little bit. But that's the lineup I was thinking. If you're going to roll with Killian, because Cade is still out, because you think it's helping him, and you want to play Ivy at the off guard, but you still want 3-point shooting at that 3 and 4 spot. I don't know. I don't know. It probably doesn't work, and they're probably still going with the two big lineup. But I was trying to think outside of the box.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to do the two big lineup and still have shooting out there, I think Burks and Bojan together, you could get away with it, in my opinion, because we both know Bagley he's more suited in the post. Now, is he capable of making mid range and 3-point shots? Sure, but it's not going to be a high percentage shot. Duran right now, for what it's worth, he's a rim runner. Haven't really seen him catch too many lobs. Like we were all told that he's like this lob threat, but maybe it's still a timing thing. Maybe it's chemistry with Jaden Ivey, seeing where he likes to go, getting to his spots. But I think if you want to get away with that two big lineup, Burks and Bojan in the starting lineup could provide the spacing that you need to pull it off.
I like that lineup though with Alec Burke. He's very underrated. He's been solid so far in a couple of games, but yeah, I like Alec Burke. I like your idea for the lineup too, but I think we're going two big lineups. Two bigs in the lineup, like we already said. We'll move on though. Cade Cunningham, he's out this week. We talked about it on Sunday, shin soreness. There's not much to say. Killian Hayes has been fine in starting at guard in Cade's spot. Ivy's been playing phenomenal, showing all of us why he's special. Sucks not to have Cade, but it's cool when you got two young guards that are just playing really well right now in his absence.
Yeah, I mean, there's some discourse among Pistons fans right now, for sure, with Jaden Ivey and Killian. A lot of it's such a dark time right now on
What is this
Pistons
though?
Twitter.
What is this though? I've been following along. I don't see too much of that. Like, I'll get into what I've been seeing most on Twitter in a second when we get into one of these topics. But what is this rift between Ivy and Hayes?
It's people are saying that the Pistons are playing better with Kate out, and Killian can be more of himself, and Jaden Ivey is in a more natural position since he has the ball in his hands, and it's just like I don't know. You have 3 wins, like, and they haven't won without Cade yet. Like,
Yeah,
it's just like I don't get what we're doing. Like, yeah, it's depressing. Yeah, we haven't really won too many games over the last 3 years. I get it, but like, if you're trying to convince yourself that this team is better with Cade Cunningham not playing at all, I don't know what to tell you.
that is how losing franchises stay at the bottom, is by doing things like that, where they like argue and then they're like, okay, we got to do this and this and this, instead of just letting it play out for a little while and see if they can figure it out. Just let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's not have conversations like that. Who's better between this? If Killian Hayes is playing better, who cares? You know what I'm saying? The Pistons are still losing. I'd rather have the best players out on the floor.
Yeah, same here. I think we still lack talent. And it's kind of crazy for me to say that, but we're very young, but we just lack the talent to surround Cade and Ivy with the proper shooters and the cutters and the defenders that they need to be successful. And that'll come in time. Free agency draft, wherever we do land in the draft, and whatever wings we do target in free agency this summer. But I think that's going to be your foundation backcourt, and I don't really think him sitting out changes anything that the Pistons have plans for. I think they view those two as the backcourt of the future for probably maybe the next 6 to 8 years.
I agree. I agree. Okay, let's get into this next topic. I know people knew this was coming, but was it the right move to bring Sadiq Bey off the bench?
Yes, I think it was, just for the fact that you have Bojan and Sadiq in the starting lineup, and a lot of fans like you noticed that the 3-point shot is not falling. It's a career low, I believe, for Sadiq.
It is.
Bojan's having a career year, at the three. He's shooting the 3-point shot very well. But I think what a lot of fans just completely failed to mention is Bojan is a shot merchant. Bojan looks for his shot 90% of the time. And with Sadiq, the scouting report on Sadiq is out. They know he can shoot the 3-point shot very well. And he gets run off that 3-point line so quickly that, of course, his 3-point numbers are going to be down. He's taking it to the hole so much more than he has, his first 2 years into the league. And I think that's something that I've liked a lot in his development this year is he's really said, okay, if they're going to take my 3-point shot away, I'm going to take it to the hole. And we were talking before we went live. His free throw numbers, they're excellent. He said he shot 50% maybe one time this year. Shot 90% multiple times throughout the year. I think Sadiq Bey will be fine. It's just him adjusting to defenses attacking him off that 3-point line. And, if he was shooting maybe 33, maybe 34%, we're probably having a different conversation right now.
So he's shooting 92% from the line this season, 30% from three, 42% from the field. He is taking a career low in 3-pointers at 5.5 a game. Instead, last year he took 7. His career is 7, so he's lower in that numbers. But do you think this is more of a move to put Sadiq Bey in the best position, or just because there's not enough shots to go around with him in the starting lineup?
I think it's one, putting him in a better position off the bench because he'll probably be maybe a first or second option. And two, I think once Bagley came back, they wanted to, obviously test that too big lineup, and they had Bagley and Stewart in there, and there was really no room for Sadiq, and they obviously want the better 3-point shooter and Bojan playing small forward. So I think that's what happened. And I think having Sadiq Bey off your bench is a luxury to me.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%.
I think that him coming off the bench with your second unit, you got a guy that can kind of be, the leader out there. And I love that Sadiq Bey isn't one of those players that his ego is so big that he doesn't want to come off the bench.
Yeah.
You could have a real problem if he wasn't starting, but you don't, because he cares about winning. He cares about the team's success. And I think that, him off the bench, I think he's been fine.
Yeah, it's been – I was going to say this. It gives the second unit direction on offense because they're the worst in the league. They have no direction they don't know who to go to, so Sadiq Bey gives them that. He gives them that leader on the second unit. I loved what Coach Casey said too. I believe he said this after the game, and I love the way he explained it to people. He was explaining it and making the comparison to Manu Ginobili, whereas Ginobili came off the bench on those great Spurs teams, and that's what we view Sadiq Bey as, and it's still going to get starters minutes. He's just been coming in a different role, similar to Manu Ginobili. Manu Ginobili was a great player. He did what he needed to do to help the team win. He sacrificed those precious starts we all care about for, a role off the bench. And look, there was a dynasty in the 2000s with that Spurs teams, and Ginobili was a huge part of it. And, who knows? Sadiq Bey, he could have a large impact off the bench, just like a Ginobili for a dynasty in Detroit.
For sure. I look at a player in Memphis, and I wish he could turn into him. I wish he could turn into Desmond Bane. Like if Sadiq Bey had like a Desmond Bane type of season, you know how many fans are probably campaigning for most improved player?
I'd be one of them.
Yeah, like literally, I love Sadiq. I think still out of his draft class, out of Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, I still think he has the highest ceiling out of all of them. I think he's developed the most out of all three of them too.
I think I don't know, man. Isaiah Stewart is taking some leaps though. I'm not saying, and it's just because of that 3-point shot, it's starting to develop. And I won't get into that. But anyways, Sadiq Bey, do you think I think he actually reaches his ceiling, has a better shot at reaching his ceiling and his potential coming off the bench, because now he gets to do the things I've complained about when he was in the starting lineup. I didn't want to see him come off the line and try to drive and try to get to the line or do all that stuff because Cade and Ivy were out on the floor. Now that he's going to the second unit, dude, I don't care how many 3-point shots you take, how many times you drive it, how many times you try to beat the guy, how many times you look people off. I don't care about any of that. Just go out there and try to score as much as you can in the second unit. And I think that's the best role for Saddiq Bey.
It's funny. I had a buddy of mine who's a media member out in Sacramento, and he saw that Bagley was starting, and he automatically assumed that the Pistons were looking to trade Saddiq Bey. Just from a national perspective, like outside teams, like trying to look in, um, they think that we're trying to get rid of Sadiq, which is probably the farthest thing from the truth. I think he's probably one of the most valuable building blocks this team has right now. And to your point, yeah, it was frustrating having him in the starting lineup of him, not shooting threes, trying to, force it for layups or, trying to get to the basket and, this, you know, offensive or defensive teams, setting for charges and then it would be a turnover. But I think off the bench, you can kind of get back to what he was doing his rookie year and his second year of the league. And it's just, light it up from three. Being that guy off the bench, it can just be a flamethrower from three and kind of be a leader off that bench with Killian Hayes out there.
Man, I hope him and Killian Hayes, that's going to be fun to watch. Like Killian just feeding and feeding and feeding Saddiq Bey, and he's just going to keep eating and eating and eating. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Were you kind of annoyed though with some of those Pistons fans that on social media that have louder I guess I shouldn't say it to you. You have a big platform on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But I was getting kind of annoyed that there were some Pistons fans out there complaining about Saddiq Bey and saying how wrong of Casey and everything, when I think this is one of Casey's best moves. So I guess I'm asking is, do you think this is one of Casey's best moves? And were you just annoyed with Pistons fans complaining about the move before we saw the results?
I wasn't too annoyed because I knew that's something that they have talked about. I mean, in the summer league, like they hinted that they wanted to have, Durant and Stewart out there. Like this has been in the plans. It's been in the works for months. So it shouldn't really surprise anybody that, someone had to come off the bench, whether it was Bojan or Saddiq. They just chose the guy that is shooting a less percentage from three, and it makes sense. I think I will give Casey credit for actually having the balls to do it and actually saying, hey, Saddiq, we're going to have you come off the bench. Bojan fits better with Cade and Ivy than you do right now. And we just kind of need your leadership off the bench of being, the guy off the bench that can lead the second unit. From that aspect, yeah, I'll give Casey some credit. And I give Saddiq credit for not bitching and moaning coming off the bench.
Do you think no, I'm not even going to ask that question. I saw something on Twitter. You can share your thoughts when I share it, but I had seen someone say that Bey didn't deserve to come off the bench, and then someone had said, "Well, hey, look, he lost his starting spot. He played poorly. He struggled. It was the best move in Bagley. He may not have earned it, but basically Saddiq Bey had been demoted. So even though I know you and I are talking about how it's a good move, what do you say to people that think Saddiq Bey it was a demotion for him? Like, how do you, I guess most of us would just avoid it, but I don't know. I was kind of annoyed by that too. And I guess I already had asked you that question and I'm rambling on right now, but I don't know. I guess I'm just tired of Pistons fans sometimes complaining before we see the results of something. And that's what I was getting that's where it was just coming from. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I put out a mock draft a couple days, I think yesterday. I know you asked about the Saddiq thing, but just getting back to the fans' point.
Yeah.
I saw so many fans when, the Pistons are mocked to take Scoot Henderson, who's a point guard in the overtime. No, I'm sorry, it's not overtime elite. It's the G League team right now. He's killing the G League, by the way. I think he's averaging like 25 points right now as an 18-year-old. They're like, why would we take another point guard? we should just pass on him and take we should take a center, or we should take it's just this fan base sometimes they don't do themselves any favors.
Yeah.
They are so argumentative and they're just so against logical thinking sometimes. You get to the point where you're like, it's not a bad thing for Sadiq to come off the bench. Bojan's playing better than him right now. He's a better 3-point shooter. He's got chemistry with Cade. He moves off the ball better. Like, the reason why Sadiq's coming off the bench is because Bojan has played better, and they want to play Bagley and Stewart together. And eventually they want to play Duran and Isaiah Stewart together. So this was coming. So maybe it's the casual fan not really staying up to date with the beat writers here in the city that try their best to educate these fans, on a nightly basis, saying like, hey, this was coming, this was in the works. And these fans just don't pay attention to it unless it's coming from Woj. I guess they're kind of ignorant towards it. That's just my like my optics from like looking on Twitter, looking on social media with Pistons fans is they get very surprised when they see a lineup change and they were expecting Sadiq to stay in there.
Yeah, thank you, by the way, for cleaning up what I was saying. I'm glad that you were able to transcribe that mess of ramblings I was just saying a few minutes ago. I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess my thing is I hate when fans automatically go to the negative side of things. Like we were talking about on this podcast for a couple weeks now. Well, at least we had brought up the topic of bringing Sadiq Bey off the bench, and I had pointed to how it might be a positive thing. I just hate when this fan base automatically just goes to, well, Sadiq Bey was demoted because he's playing like ass. He played like crap. Coach Casey, there's nothing else he could do. Coach Casey doesn't know what he's doing. Like, this is a terrible move, but he had to make it because Sadiq Bey sucks. Like, I hate that. And you don't see it a lot from Pistons fans, but sometimes that stuff just comes on my timeline and just frustrates me so much because it gets so much engagement and there are so many people that start to agree with it. And I'm like, man, I hate the negativity from the fan base, even though I can be critical sometimes, but man, just not seeing the larger picture it's kind of a problem, and it just bothers me. So
yeah, I think sometimes we get caught in the moment a little bit too.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we say things and we don't really think about it. And I think that's what does happen with fans is, they don't sit back and say, well, okay, Bay's coming off the bench because they want to do this. Well, Bojan and Bay can't play together because they're redundant. Like someone said that in the comment section. I do agree with that. I think Bojan's just he's more of a seasoned vet. He's been playing for 8 years. This is Bay's third year. And Bay has had 3 different roles in 3 different seasons. And that's probably really challenging for a young player. When you come in your rookie year, you're asked just to shoot threes. Your second year, after Jeremy Grant gets injured, you're basically the second option. And you were like a fourth option your rookie year. And then this year, they're saying, okay, we want you to work on going to the hole more. Like, I'm not making excuses for him, but his role has changed so much. And as soon as the Pistons figure out what his actual role is, maybe he can get back to his old self.
I like that. Way to close out the topic. That's awesome, man. I have nothing to say, because that was, again, just like earlier in the podcast, I don't want to take away from what you just said. That was awesome, man. Way to put people in their place. Awesome. Love it, Anthony.
I'm not trying to put them in their place.
No, I know.
I'm trying to educate them without being an asshole.
I think you can do it by, when I say putting people in their place, I'm not saying you're being a jerk or anything like that. You're just doing it in a nice, polite way. And I appreciate it as your co-host, man. So Jalen Duran has the best contested rebound percentage. Yeah, this is kind of a cool stat. This comes from NBA University. So he's beating Anthony Davis. I don't know how they even track contested rebounds.
I think Spectrum, they track it. I think Clean the Glass is another app that you can pay for. When you're really getting into the analytics and really getting into this is like NBA Twitter, like nerd 101, and I absolutely love it.
So I'm reading. This is what someone says the definition is. It says Well, they just said, think about how great of a rebounder you have to be to grab 50 to 60% contested rebounds. They're not going 1v1 rebounder. There's usually 3 to 4 dudes going after it. So is that what a contested rebound is? That 3 to 4
Yeah,
guys are going after? That's okay. Yeah, that's impressive. That is really impressive. So it's not like him being boxed out and him just fighting for it.
it's just him contesting rebounds with other people that he's got
Mhm.
the highest percentage out of anyone in the NBA. And you look at some of the names on that list. Andre Drummond, former Piston, he's fifth.
Yeah.
Jalen Duren's first. Anthony Davis second. He's one of the better rebounders in the game. I mean, you can even scroll down the list. Pirtle, he's a very good rebounder. I think he's like sixth or seventh or something like that. Like the fact that Jalen Duren is first in contested rebound percentage shows you how hard he works on the glass, whether it's defensive or offensive. And to your point, a lot of people are saying, "Hey, that's Detroit may have a young Dwight Howard." It just kind of shows you his effort level too, because rebounds to me, it's all about effort. And if you're not giving effort, you're not getting rebounds.
No, 100%. That's what it is. I love Duren's hustle. I love Duren, man. I was going to ask you this, though. Is Jalen Duren, and I seen this on Twitter. That's why I'm bringing this up. I want to make that very clear. You've heard me on the podcast. I've been saying this for a while. I think Duren is the next Dwight Howard or some version of Dwight Howard. I've said that before. But there are some fans that think Duren is the next Andre Drummond. So is Duren the next Andre Drummond in Detroit, or is he something more? That's what I want to know. I also want to open it up to the people watching. Feel free to write some comments, and like we always say, if they're good, we'll share them if we even get any. But to you, Anthony, do you think he is Andre Drummond, or do you think he's something more?
I think if you look at the rookie numbers, they're very comparable, and I could see why Pistons fans look at Duren, they look at Drummond, and they're saying, he's the next Drummond. What I will say is Andre Drummond, when he came into the league, I think some Pistons fans, maybe they do forget because it was a while ago, he was very aggressive, much like Duren is, and I don't know what happened over the years. Maybe it's coaching. He kind of lost that aggressiveness, and he kind of turned into a player that we labeled as soft. I think we can both agree there. When I look at Duren, I don't think he's going to become the next Andre Drummond. I don't think he's going to become the next Dwight Howard because I think people forget how dominant Dwight Howard was in the post in Orlando. Duren doesn't have post moves yet. He's got he's got a nice little jump shot that develops. I look at a guy like a Bam Adebayo. I think that's more of a realistic comparison, and I think Bam Adebayo is a very good center in this league. I
Yes.
think Duren has the potential to be just as good a passer as Bam. I think he can kind of have that same mid range game, and I think where he separates himself from Bam is the rim protection, because we talked about it on Sunday. His rim protection is something we haven't seen in a long time. We haven't seen help side defense like that since Ben Wallace. Like there was a shot he had against the Raptors, man. That shit went flying. And he damn near injured Alec Burks in just trying to block it like he landed on him. Like, I think if you're a Piston fan and you look at Jalen Duren, you should just be so excited and just salivating because you have a building block center. You don't have to go out and try to go get a center in free agency. I'm glad we didn't get DeAndre Ayton. I'm so glad we didn't get DeAndre
Oh my
Ayton.
God, yes.
I'd much rather have Jalen Duren on a rookie scale contract for the next 4 years than pay DeAndre Ayton a max, because I think Duren within the next 3 to 4 years will develop into a starting center that's possibly top 15, maybe top 10, dare I say. But I think he's a very good draft pick by Trey Weaver.
Yeah, I do. There's not really much I can even say more. I don't think he's the next Andre Drummond. I think, like I said, or even just a few minutes ago, I think he's some version of Dwight Howard. Bam Adebayo is a very good player, and that's a very interesting comparison for Duren because both 6'9", 6'10", very athletic, very strong, good defensive players, strong rebounders. Bam, a little bit better offensively, but interesting comparison to say the least. We got a good one in Duren. We can talk and brag about Ivy, but we got to talk about Duren just the same because he is going to anchor this defense for a really, really long time. Yeah, I think he's something more though. I'm with you too, though. I guess I see the comparisons for Andre Drummond, and you were right. Andre Drummond was more aggressive his first couple seasons in the NBA. Don't know what went wrong. I'm with you on that. I have no idea. I think for yeah, I guess outside of the rebounding, I don't know why people compare him to Andre Drummond. That's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a comment. If you are watching live on YouTube, David had a comment about Duran because I did comp him to Bam. So Duran is a way better rim protector than Bam already. If he grows a mean streak, oh boy. I think he's right though. I think Duran, we're going to see him get starter minutes with Stewart being out. If he can stay out of foul trouble, we're going to see how good of a rim protector he actually is.
Well, what do you?
I think he could get to a game, honestly. 2 blocks a game.
What do you? Oh man, I could. Ah man. What do you mean by the mean streak though? That's what I'm curious by. I just want to know, like, what is a mean streak to you as a basketball player? Because I think Jalen Duren is pretty intimidating already. Like, I don't. Do you mean mean streak like offensively? Like, you want him out there just like banging on people all the time? Like, what is the mean streak to you? I just want to know.
So he did comment again, but before I put his comment on there, I knew exactly what he meant by mean streak. He's talking about Detroit toughness. He's talking about just, having that bad boy, just being a force down there, being someone that you're not going to challenge at the rim. Like they're afraid, like, oh crap, Jalen Duren's in there. I don't want to,
Gotcha.
go to the hole for this layup because he's going to block it. I think that's what David meant by Detroit toughness, mean streak. And I think that's what Pistons fans, they just want out of a center after, you watch Ben Wallace for so many years. You watch Bill Laimbeer if you're a little bit older. Like, Detroit wants a center that just has that Detroit toughness, that bad boy, that mean streak. I think that's what he was trying to get to.
Awesome. Appreciate the comment, David. For real, man. Thank you. Appreciate you for supporting the podcast as well. Let's talk about the forward position, though. Dwayne Casey eventually sees Isaiah Stewart playing the 4 over the 5. There's a tweet by Omari Sankofa II. He says Casey and Isaiah Stewart improve shooting. Eventually, he's going to be a power forward / center. That way around, not the other way around. I guess my question is, what do you want to see more from Isaiah Stewart at the power forward spot? If he is going to be a 4, like, I get 3-point percentage. We want to see that. We want to see more consistency. But what else would you want to see from Isaiah Stewart at the power forward position?
I remember our very first podcast when I was talking about Isaiah Stewart. I said, for me to take him seriously, I need to see that 3-point shot go in. I don't know if you remember that. So I think for him to play the 4, he has to be a respectable 3-point shooter for this to work. Because I think all Pistons fans, they love Isaiah Stewart, but their biggest gripe with him is he's 6'8". He's an undersized center. And to Casey's point, I think Casey knows that. He wants to see him play the power forward position. To your question, what does he need to do? Just keep hitting that 3-point shot, because if he's a stretch 4, that's going to open up your whole offense now. Because obviously you're going to have Cade and Jalen at the guards, and you already have Bojan at the 3. If you have another 3-point shooter out there on the perimeter, now you got to pick your poison. Am I going to guard Cade? Am I going to guard Bojan? Am I going to guard Jaden Ivey? Or am I going to guard Isaiah Stewart from 3? You saw the Raptors in that game. They weren't really respecting his shot, and he knocked down a couple 3-point shots. So I think for this to work, for him to become the starting power forward, he's just going to have to hit that 3-point shot at league average, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's not really much more because he's already so good at, like, switching and the way the Pistons I saw someone break this down, I believe it was Motor City Hoops, that the Pistons, they switch 1 through 4 and they've been dropping the center. So that would make more sense if you have him playing at the 4, because I'd rather have someone like Duren or even really someone like Bagley dropping at the 5, because they're better athletes. Even though Bagley's not a better rim protector, he can just get up there over Isaiah Stewart. So yeah, this might just completely change the defense as well, having Isaiah Stewart at the 4, because you're now having a more athletic player play that 5 spot. But yeah, outside of 3-point shooting, I can't really think of anything else I want to see from Isaiah Stewart at the 4 because, I mean, man, I don't know. There's not really much more of you can ask. He does everything so well. He's just out of position.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about Paul Millsap when I was looking at Isaiah Stewart playing the power forward when I saw this tweet. Paul Millsap, when he was in Atlanta, he was a very good power forward. But Millsap didn't really shoot a lot of threes. He's more of a mid-range type of power forward. But I think if you kind of want to go one step further, I think Isaiah Stewart needs to develop a mid-range game too. Develop more of a post game. Develop more of a, I'd love to see some post fadeaways because his jumper is probably one of the smoothest jumpers on the team. Like, I think every shot's going in when he shoots it from 3, but that's just me. Like, it just looks so pure that I was just like, man, that shit's going in, but sometimes it doesn't. But I think if he develops more of a post game and develops more of a mid range game, then this could definitely work.
I think he has a pretty good post game. He has some good footwork. I just don't think he gets enough touches so much in the post, but rightfully so. I mean, you're not going to feed Isaiah Stewart when you have Cade and Ivy and, Bay and Bojan and everything out on there. So it makes sense, but I'm looking forward to it. I said this when we first started doing this podcast. I expect Duren and Stewart to start and be kind of like a poor version of Al Horford and Robert Williams in Boston. Like, while they're young, I mean, I believe the potential is there to be greater than those two, but I mean, yeah, that's what I expect. And in order for that to work, Stewart's going to have to play the 4.
Yeah, so we have a comment from Ryan because he wanted to contribute with this topic, and I thought it was such a good comment. He's talking about Antonio McDyess.
Oh,
he was a very good Pistons power forward. We're kind of showing our age a little bit, but I love McDyess. He said McDyess elbow shot.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, you talk about a guy that had a jumper that I thought that you think Isaiah Stewart's shot was going to fall every time. Antonio McDyess from the elbow. Oh my God, dude. I thought that was as consistent as I feel like Tim Duncan's shot from the elbow, but his was just a bank shot. Yeah. Wow. That's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I think to David's point, yeah, Stewart should watch some Antonio McDyess tape because I feel that the mid-range shot is kind of a lost art in today's NBA because so many NBA teams are so hyper-focused on three-point shots. Like, you look at most box scores for NBA teams, 35, 40, sometimes up to 50 three-point shots a game. Like, the mid-range shot is still valuable to me in today's NBA. I mean, you look at Cade. Cade loves that elbow jump shot. It's like, we were comparing him to DeMar DeRozan a couple podcasts ago, but I mean, Stewart wants to really, lock into this power forward position. I think watching Antonio McDyess, you mentioned Tim Duncan, watching some of these power forwards that, had a post game. Dirk Nowitzki, for example, who Casey did coach as an assistant. I mean, there's so many power forwards that he could watch. Kevin Garnett, who's a really good power forward in the post. Like, I think Stewart has the possibility and the potential to, turn into kind of like a very good power forward. If he watches the tape, if he puts the work in, we both know he's going to put the work in, but it's exciting to think about.
I got a name for you for him to watch. Elton Brand. He was undersized.
Mm-hmm.
He very good shot blocker. I think he had a post game for sure. He might be more athletic than Isaiah Stewart, but both undersized, both have like pretty decently long wingspans. So I don't know. Maybe watch a little bit of Elton Brand when he was playing for the Clippers because he was amazing. Maybe even Jefferson too, because he was like a below the basket player, a lot bigger than Isaiah Stewart, but another one of those guys that, wasn't overly athletic, but still got it done in the NBA.
Yeah, Elton Brand was a very good player. I believe during his Clipper days, he was a very good mid-range shot. He had a really good mid-range shot, and like you said, he was kind of undersized for his position, but he was still a very good player. I still remember when Andre Drummond dunked on him. That was probably like the tail end of his career. Like, he knocked him on his ass.
Was that when he was playing for Atlanta?
I believe so. Yeah, he like knocked him on his ass and he dunked on him. I think during his rookie year or his second
Ooh,
year. I don't remember. It was just really funny.
freaking Elton Brand, man. I loved Elton Brand. But yeah, I don't know. I love the comparisons to Isaiah Stewart because you really gotta you can't compare him to like a modern day player really, because we don't really get those kind of undersized fours that game is built more on like technique versus like
Mhm.
athleticism.
It's funny because he was like, you look back at his 247 like high school rankings. He was like the number two player in the country, right behind James Wiseman, I believe. Like those two were like one and two in terms of just like prospect rankings, and like he goes 16, and like you remember the draft grades from CBS Sports, like D minus, because they're like he's such a throwback, like he won't really make an impact. Like so many people in the media thought that drafting Isaiah Stewart was such a mistake by the Pistons, but I mean that 3 point shot's looking real nice right now.
Isn't it weird though when you think about it that there's another universe out there where the Pistons drafted Isaiah Stewart in like the second round, but ended up with Sadiq Bey and Desmond Bain.
Oh God, don't do that to me. I wanted Tyrese Maxey honestly at 16, and I was shocked that he went to Philly so damn late. I was just like, how does he go that late?
You know who I was surprised by that slipped was RJ Hampton. RJ Hampton, I really thought he was going to go much, much higher than where he went in that draft.
Yeah, he hasn't really put too many games
Oh,
together.
no, there's
Where
a reason he dropped. Like, yeah, that was
yeah,
definitely wrong. But yeah, no, Isaiah, I'll never forget that. I remember all those Pistons fans too. Like, who? Who is this guy? Who is Isaiah Stewart? What did he do? What college did he play for? What is Washington? Where is this? You know, he almost signed to play at Michigan State.
yeah, I remember. Shout out to James Edwards and Nick when they had him on for a an interview. He said he was pretty close to going to Michigan State. Like, bro, can you imagine Tom Izzo and Isaiah Stewart though?
Oh, dude, he'd be there for like 6 years. Tom Izzo would never let him leave. He would never. Isaiah Stewart is as perfect as a Michigan State player as there is. Like he's a coach's dream. Tom Izzo would have loved Isaiah Stewart.
Man, shout out to Michigan State though last night, or
Well,
it wasn't last night. It was a couple nights ago. Upsetting, I believe it was Kentucky.
see, I don't follow Michigan State basketball.
I just follow college basketball in general. As everyone's like, "Oh, dude, it's going to the overtime." I was like, "Oh, really?"
What's your favorite team outside of the state of Michigan to follow for college basketball?
Favorite, I always keep an eye on Villanova.
Oh, okay. When did you kind of become a Villanova fan?
Not a Villanova fan, just the prospects.
Oh, okay.
So
So
in the back of my mind, I always know Villanova's going to have a good maybe 3-4. I remember when Sadiq Bey was there, I was just like, yeah, that guy's going in the first round. Villanova's always producing really good players. I think Villanova's a school. North Carolina, I always look at because they've always produced really good players, and then obviously your Kentucky's, your Dukes. Just looking at some of the top recruits and each draft class I do look at. And I've been a sicko lately, watching a lot of Overtime Elite because of the Thompson brothers.
I'm a UConn fan. I'm a Connecticut fan outside of the state of Michigan. Like I fell in love with the UConn Huskies because of Emeka Okafor and Ben Gordon. Though Ben Gordon was my guy in college basketball, dude. I loved him. And then those Syracuse teams with, I mean, Carmelo Anthony, that was awesome. But Jerry McNamara just pulling up and busting some threes from like half court, looking like Steph Curry before he was even born. It's incredible. And I'm obviously joking because Steph Curry was definitely born before that. But
Did you see Syracuse offered a scholarship to Carmelo Anthony's son?
I did see that. That's why I brought the Syracuse Orangemen up. I really love Gonzaga, though, too. I've loved them for a really long time.
They're frauds.
I'd say that. I love them. Also, dude, one of my guilty pleasures as a college basketball fan is staying up late and catching like the Gonzaga St. Mary's game at midnight. Like I know it goes until midnight. I forget what time it normally starts, but it's a late night game. That is one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite games every year for college basketball. St. Mary's or like BYU versus Gonzaga. That was a lot of fun. That was, man, there was this University of San Francisco. They had this one kid. He was like a 6'1" point guard. He went for like 40 against Gonzaga. That was really cool too. He ended up going to San Diego State. Devin like Watson, I think his name was, but he was awesome.
So we do have some questions. David's still hanging around, on the YouTube chat. He had something interesting, which I haven't really seen this comparison. Talking about Isaiah Stewart, because we were talking about him earlier, about transitioning into the power forward position. It said Isaiah runs like Chris Webber sometimes. Love the menacing run.
Man, it's hard for me to. I'd really have to watch Isaiah Stewart because, like, automatically when you say the name Chris Webber, and I know like he's saying running, like obviously not like the way they play, I automatically go like, well, Isaiah Stewart doesn't really play like Chris Webber, so I would really have to watch him run to see that. But that's interesting. What about Juwan Howard though for Isaiah Stewart?
Like is it comparable or?
Yeah, like because he was kind of like a stretch four. He might have been a little bit more athletic, but Juwan Howard a little bit. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look his stuff up.
I don't know why my brain went right to Zach Randolph. I have no idea why. Like, I think Isaiah Stewart is the type of guy where, like, you're not going to try him like Zach Randolph. But I don't think he has the post game or the mid range game like a Zebo.
Oh man, no, he doesn't have that type of. He doesn't have that shot. He doesn't have that shot like Zach.
I wish he did.
Same. I loved Zach Randolph's shot too, the little lefty. It's such a pure shot. I think it's the way he shot the ball. I don't know why I was always mesmerized by the way he actually shot the ball. You want to hear Juwan Howard's numbers in his second year when he was named an All-Star?
Sure.
Dude, 22 points a game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, less than a steal, less than a block, shooting 38% from 3 and 49% from the field. Juwan Howard, 22 and 8. I forgot, dude. He was a menace.
Yeah, him and Ben Wallace played together.
Yep. Didn't him and Rasheed play together too in Washington? I think they did for 1 year.
I don't remember. No, we do have a question. We have a Kevin Knox question. I feel like we haven't talked about him in a while.
Is there anything to talk about with Kevin Knox?
I mean, we can get into it. Do you think Kevin Knox is salvageable?
I want to say yes because, again, Kevin Knox was a guy I was a huge fan of coming out of Kentucky. But, dude, he just doesn't have any, like, real basketball skills outside of shooting the ball. And if he's not shooting the ball, I don't know what he contributes to a team. So I'm going to say unless he, like, learns to play defense or learns to rebound or finds that secondary elite skill you need to last in the NBA, I don't think he's salvageable.
Yeah, I think he's such a streaky shooter that it's hard to give him minutes. And to your point, he's not the defender that, like, guys like Hamidou Diallo. Like, Hamidou Diallo gets more minutes than Kevin Knox because he's a better defender. But I don't know. I think he was just a body that we had to sign because obviously you have to have 15 men on the roster. I think he was just a body at the end of the day. I don't really think that, Troy signed him because he thought that there was something there. I thought he just signed him just to, have somebody there just in case someone gets injured. And he does have hops. Like, I will give him that. He's very athletic. He can jump out of the gym. Seemed like he was making everything in the Rico Hines footage, but
he doesn't look like Brady.
Yeah, literally, but he hasn't really produced so far this year. And, it's probably hard to produce when you're like the 13th man off the bench, even though there's 12 men.
Even if you are the last person on the bench, do something. Like, this dude is he hasn't averaged more than 2 rebounds a game since his second year in the NBA. Dude, if your shot's not falling, Do something else on the floor and contribute to the team. Dude, get a fucking rebound. Get two. Dude, play some defense. Just hustle. Dude, Hami gets like 10 points a game just because he runs the floor. It's amazing. Do that. Follow what Hami does, or you're going to be quickly out of the NBA. Kevin Knox, he could have a great career overseas. That's what he should do.
You know what the funny part about Kevin Knox? I was just thinking about it. The Hawks completely got fleeced when they traded Cam Reddish to New York.
Dude.
Like, they traded a wing for Kevin Knox. I'm not trying to, bash the guy, but Cam Reddish is a very good player. And they had Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter as their wings with Trae Young and John Collins and all those guys. And he got traded for a high draft pick because they were both high lottery picks. But, like, man, what a fleece by the Knicks. Like, honestly.
Dude, the Hawks are dumb too. Have you seen the way Kevin Huerter's playing? Like the way he's shooting the ball?
Oh, he's killing it. No surprise that he's killing it out in Sacramento. Does not surprise me at all.
I can't even make fun of the freaking Hawks just because, they've been good. But, dude, letting go of Kevin Huerter for nothing is just – I don't even actually know what they got in that. Did they trade him or did he just sign? I don't remember.
He may have signed him. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's a free agent, but still, I mean, he had like the ginger Luke Kennard just like basically leave you.
Oh, the ginger dude, come on. This is the ginger Klay Thompson, dude. Come on. Traded by the Atlanta Hawks to the Sacramento Kings for Mo Harkless, Justin Holiday, in a 2020 first round pick.
Yeah, that's not good. That is not good at all.
For Kevin Huerter, though? I mean, that first round pick, though?
Well, I mean, it's not good for the Hawks, but I mean, I feel like the Hawks are just so stacked as a team that they didn't really have room for them.
Yeah, but dude, 53% from three this year. What is up with these ridiculous shooting numbers 13, 15 games into the season?
Bro, it's crazy. I've never seen so many 30-point games. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like, you had to bust your ass to get 30 points without three-pointers. Like, Allen Iverson used to have to at least get 10 free throw attempts just to get 30 points. Like, now, like, role players are getting 30 points just off of three-pointers. It's insane.
Dude, what was KCP shooting this year?
54 and a half, I believe.
My gosh, dude.
On five attempts a game.
That's so crazy.
Like, I was just thinking about it because you know how much we were talking about Killian Hayes the other day.
Yeah.
And kind of like expectations. Like KCP, if you look at the KCP draft, why don't you pull it up just to kind of see like who was taken above him?
What
like,
draft year is that? Oh,
I think 2013, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. Let me look. But to my point, like fans didn't have that same expectations as KCP as they do with Killian Hayes, and he was drafted 8th overall.
You didn't think people had high expectations for KCP?
Not the way they have expectations for Killian right now. Hell no.
Dude, I thought this guy was going to be – I used to say this about KCP. People were like, man, he's a terrible shooter. I'm like, yeah, but you need to have a guy with nuts that's willing to go out there and take the last second shot because a lot of people don't want it, and that's what KCP has. That dude's just like, here are my cojones. I'm going to fire away. I have no regrets if I make or miss it. I do not care. I'll be the guy that let it fall on me. I love that about KCP. I was so sad to see him go. I thought there was so much more to his game. I thought he was underrated. That's how little I know.
Yeah, I mean, we offered him a contract. He just decided not to take it. Like, we offered him the bag, too. We offered him, like, a 4-year, close to a max contract. I think it was, like, 4 years, $80 million. And he went to Los Angeles for the 1 year, $18 million. Obviously, he won a ring out of it. But, I mean, he's just a really good role player.
It is.
And that's where I was kind of getting to, though. Like, we were talking about, like, how Killian isn't up to our expectations, but you look at KCP who was drafted 8th overall, won a championship, and he's a high level role player. But people don't have that same kind of thought process when they look at Killian.
Yeah, but I mean, Killian's not the high level role player yet.
He could be, though.
I mean, eventually, yeah. I don't know. I guess I don't know. We'd have to go back in time to really get an idea of what people thought about KCP because I just don't remember. I know how I felt about it. I loved the pick, even though I didn't know who he was. And when he first started playing, I was like, oh, this guy's just going to be, he might be the two guard of the future. You know, I don't know if I thought all star though with KCP. I just thought a very good player.
Yeah, I kind of wanted CJ McCollum out of that draft, and I was pissed when Portland got him. I was just like, man, like, not to say that KCP wasn't a good player. I thought that, I think his rookie year, he averaged like 5 points. Like, he didn't really do too much, but like defensively, he was just the two guard that would take on the best player night in and night out.
Yep.
I'm just looking at it. It's just like, man, like if Killian turns into a role player or a backup point guard, like it happens.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that is kind of weird. Now that I'm thinking about it, like there really was like a really weird. The expectations for Killian were really out there. Because like even my own expectations for KCP, like I'm thinking about him now, and they didn't seem that ridiculous at the time. But for Killian Hayes, I was thinking, maybe a Hall of Famer or something at that seventh pick. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. I mean, you can just look at like previous drafts for the Pistons. Like a lot of the guys that they drafted around that seventh, eighth pick, they weren't more than role players.
Yeah, and I guess they weren't ever drafted to be more than like even Stanley Johnson at 8. I don't even remember people saying like, "Oh, he's the franchise savior." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There were people saying like, "No, he's drafted to complement Andre Drummond."
Yeah, it was most people wanted Justice Winslow and Stanley Johnson. Nobody even knew who Devin Booker was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I knew. I just thought I didn't want to draft Devin Booker, and this is how stupid I was because he came off the bench in Kentucky. I was like, well, dude, if you can't even start in Kentucky, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how stupid I was. But I didn't even realize how talented Kentucky was. But no, what I'm getting at with Stanley Johnson is, and more to your point, like talking about Killian and comparing the two, we draft Stanley at 8, but there was never any talk of him being the franchise savior. But you draft Killian at 7, and it's just one spot. It's just literally one spot. And the talk was, dude, Killian's here to bring us a championship. Like he's gonna put Detroit back on the map. But again, to your point, we weren't saying that about KCP or Stanley Johnson. We just kind of drafted them to, to be role players and to be a piece of the Andre Drummond puzzle.
Or Greg Monroe for that matter.
Yeah.
Like we weren't even having that. So David has just got so many questions for us, so I do appreciate that. This is actually a draft question from this year. Last question. I'm pro Ivy. Do you guys regret not drafting the Mathurin from Indiana instead of Ivy? There was an article today from Bleacher Report that Sacramento should have taken him 4th.
Oh man, no, I really was super high on Jaden Ivey. I really liked Ben Mathurin. I thought he would have been an excellent consolation prize, really, for the draft. When I saw that the Pistons landed at 5, it went Ivy number 1 for me, and then Ben Mathurin number 2. I didn't want Keegan Murray. I didn't want anybody else. It was either Ivy or Ben Mathurin for me at that 5 spot. But no, as of right now, there's no regret. I feel no regret that the Pistons didn't draft Mathurin over Ivy, or instead of Ivy.
Yeah, so I actually got into a debate on Facebook, in a Facebook group, a Pistons Facebook group, because we were talking about, Ivy, Shaden Sharp, and Benedict Mathurin.
Yeah.
And my thing was they took the best player available. They didn't go for fit. Because I think we can agree that the Pistons still need a shooting guard.
Yep.
And you're playing 2 point guards, which We'll see if it works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the two guards in this draft, Shaden Sharp and Benedict Mathurin, would be better fits next to Cade Cunningham. Um, if Ivy was gone, I would have taken Benedict Mathurin at 5.
Yeah.
I would have just passed Keegan Murray. Not to say Keegan Murray's not a good basketball player, because he is. I think he's probably one of the most NBA ready prospects that did come out of this year's draft class outside of Paolo Banchero. Um, I just think if you had Benedict Mathurin next to Cade, you got a guy that could be your two guard of the future. But like I said, that's just the draft process. You don't draft for fit. You draft best player available, and I think that's what Detroit did, and you can't blame them for that.
No, and I think, when you have an like this could be this is what's crazy about comparing rookies. This literally could be the best season Benedict Mathurin has ever in the NBA. 19.9 points per game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting a blistering 45% from the 3-point percentage on 6 attempts, 3-point line around 6 attempts. Like, this could very well be his best season. And that's why it's hard to compare him at rookie years. I guess this would be even a better question just a couple years down the road. But for Ivy, I look at his rookie year and I'm like, dude, this is just the surface. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much more to his game that, he's gonna be playing on a different level in a few years. But with Benedict Mathurin, I just kind of feel like, man, 20 points per game, that might be the peak. There might not be more. Like, he might be so pro ready right now that he might already be at his ceiling. Like, he's going to improve a little bit, but I think Benedict Mathurin, he's probably, like I'm saying, he could just be at his ceiling right now. But with Ivy, you don't get that way. But with Benedict Mathurin, you kind of feel like that could be it. Like, I don't think Benedict Mathurin's a franchise player. And he's coming off the bench in Indiana. Again, the numbers are impressive. I'm not going to say they're not, but Benedict Mathurin just feels like he complements the pieces in Indiana really well. But if you were to give him the keys to the team, they wouldn't go very far. They'd be in the same position that they were before they drafted him. That's just kind of what it feels like. I don't know. But with Ivy, it just feels like, he could really turn the franchise around.
Yeah, I think Mathurin would fit in here nicely, and I don't think you'd really have to worry about him like taking the keys. To your point, because I still think Cade has the keys to the engine of the offense, and I think that wouldn't change. I do think he would complement Cade more just for his 3-point shooting and his ability to take it to the hole. But I think if you look to this upcoming draft, there's a guy that's very similar to Benedict Mathurin, and probably Pistons fans don't even know who he is because they're so focused on Victor and Scoot and Amani Bates this year. And that's Keontae George. Keontae George is a guy that I look at him, and there's a lot of similarities to Benedict Mathurin. He was in the mock draft that I did do. He was at mock to the Nets. He's a very good player. Very good player. Maybe Troy can work his magic and try to get, 2 lottery picks again. But, that's a guy, if I was a Pistons fan and I'm looking at the 2-guard position, definitely look at Keontae George. And obviously, you're going to look at the Amin Thompson too. But, there's a lot of good players coming out of this draft that aren't named, Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, this is supposed to be one of the best draft classes in a long time, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, you want a lottery pick this year, 100%.
Yeah, aren't they saying? I thought I've heard some people say the first 5 potential picks could have been the number 1 overall pick in like any other draft. Like all 5 of them could have been the number 1 overall pick.
Oh, for sure. Nick Smith Jr. out of Arkansas, very good point guard. Scoot Henderson, really good point guard. The Thompson brothers in the overtime elite league, very good guards. Dariq Whitehead, if you're looking at wings, probably the best wing out of this draft class. He would be really interesting next to Saddiq Bey. I think they would really complement each other.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to make it clear too. I do think Benedict Mathurin would fit in really closely, really well. With Cade Cunningham. I was just getting more at I don't even really know what I was trying to say. I just think, like, again, just to reiterate, Benedict Mathurin, it could be This could be the best season. That's it. That's what I was getting at, I guess. But yeah, no, back to this draft class. It's insane how good this draft class is.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I gave you a player to look out for.
I feel like you already know something. That's the crazy thing about you. Like you're seeing the future.
I'm telling you, I think more people will be on the Keontae George train in a couple months. They'll start watching some film on him. They'll be like, "Yo, that's a good guard."
So I'm looking at a mock draft right now on the NBA draftroom.com.
Mm-hmm.
They have the Pistons at number 5. Guess who the player is?
Probably Whitehead.
Gregory Jackson out of South Carolina.
Ooh, that's a reach. At
Compared,
5? At
yeah, they have him
5?
at 5. Six
Wow.
nine 210. They're comparing him to Julius Randle.
Pass.
Guess. Okay, at number 6, they have Cam Whitmore out of Villanova, guy you might like. Guess who they're comparing him to? He's a former Piston. Might be the head coach one day.
Jerry Stackhouse.
Yep, yeah. That's who they're comparing him to. That's cool. I like that. Damn, this is Amin Thompson. They have him going number 10. You think that's too low right now?
I think he's top 4.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the shooter you want out of a guard position, but you watch some games with him and you're just like, it's crazy just like the skill level at such a young age. Like him and his brother Asur, like they're going to be a problem in the NBA. Like I think Amin's the better Thompson brother, in my personal opinion. I think he could just do more. He can impact the game more, but he's such an athletic wing. Like you need or athletic guard. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he goes top 3.
What about Grady Dick from Kansas? He's one of the best shooters. They're comparing him to Brandon Rush. You know who that is?
Yeah, I remember Brandon Rush.
No, I mean Grady Dick.
Nah.
I saw some highlights. I don't know why they're comparing him to Brandon Rush, because he looked just like Kyle Singler. You know, remember when Kyle Singler would make those baseline cuts like right underneath the hoop? That's what this dude, he's really good at moving without the ball. And he looked just like Kyle Singler. And I'm like, I see that they have him going to the Raptors, the Detroit Pistons rivals. And it's like, man, dude, this might be a sign foreshadowing something.
Right? I mean, I hope not, man. Like, I would stay away from anyone that's compared to freaking Kyle Singler or Brandon Rush.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Oh. I love oh, my God. We got an Austin Day comparison.
Who is it?
Oh, my gosh. He plays for Florida State. How well do you know the Florida State Seminoles?
I know they're an organization where you look at the small forwards, and if there's a small forward come out of Florida State, he's usually pretty good.
Okay, this is a small forward at
Okay.
number 17. He's 6'11", 204 pounds with a 7'2" wingspan. His name is Baba Miller. He's the one being compared to Austin Day. And Bobby Portis.
I'd have to watch him a little bit more. I mean, you look at Florida State's, wings over, Patrick Williams from a few years ago, who, people are already labeling a bust, but I mean, I'm not there. Jonathan Isaac, who's a very good wing. Florida State usually produces really good small forwards.
Can I name drop you one Florida State player that I thought would make it in the NBA that didn't?
Who's that?
Al Thornton.
He was a good college player.
Dude, very good college player. He was actually a good first year. I think he made all rookie team his first year in the NBA. Let me see this. God,
yeah,
dude.
I do remember his name.
Where is this? I need to. Come on, man. We can go here in a little bit, by the way. Like, I know we're taking up some time, but yeah, he was all rookie. Dude, come on. Just tell me if it was first team or second team. All rookie first team. 07, 08. He was so old, too, when he got drafted.
I do remember that.
24 years old. He actually averaged 17 points per game his second year in the NBA.
That's crazy. I'm sure we'll get into more NBA draft stuff as the season winds down, but we're only 13 games in. I just want to educate people ahead of time of what to look out for.
So real quick though, let me just, can I read off these top 5 players to you? Tell me if you agree with it, and then tell me if what names you think will drop out of the top 5, just of these 5 that they've given us.
Okay.
So we have Victor Wembanyama, number 1, Scoot Henderson, Nick Smith, Keontae George, Gregory Jackson. You think that's the best top 5?
Oh, they got Keontae George fourth, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably the fifth. I don't remember what his name was.
Gregory Jackson.
Yeah. I think top 5. Like it's. I think Derek Whitehead will be a top 5 pick, or Cam Whitmore from Villanova.
Okay.
It's just Cam Whitmore's a really good player. He's just really fundamentally sound, and Derek Whitehead. I think if he didn't get injured, I think there would be more consideration for him in a top 5 pick capacity.
Okay. So you're just saying the only one you see the rest of those guys being drafted in the top 5 except for Gregory Jackson.
I love Keontae George at 4, but I don't think he's a top 4 pick.
Okay.
I don't. I still think he's top 10, but I don't think he's top 4.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. That's
the
awesome.
fact that they put him in there kind of just validates what I see. Like I know, like after we hang up, you're probably gonna go Google some Keontae George highlights.
Oh, 100%. 100%. No, like I told you when last year when you had tweeted out about Jaden Ivey, I went and watched the highlights and I watched a couple games right afterwards because I'm not just saying this to you because we're doing this podcast together. I'm saying this to everybody listening. Like, I really do value your basketball takes and your knowledge of the game. Like, that's why I love doing this podcast with you, because you do give some great takes, man. And you really do know the game, man. You do know the game. You were right about Jaden Ivey, and I trust what you have to say about college prospects, man.
Even overtime prospects and G League prospects like Scoot Henderson. I think we were talking about it, and I said I see Baron Davis a little bit. Baron Davis, some Derrick Rose in there. Like he's so explosive as a point guard.
Dude, yeah, when you said Baron Davis, I'm like, I got a little giddy because I used to love Baron Davis too. I guess I'll ask one more time. Do we got any more questions or?
No, we don't. Looks like David. I did appreciate we were talking with him, but he did have the sign out. Of course, as soon as I say that, someone drops a fucking comment. Oh my god, here we go. We need length in the draft from Big Fella Mike.
Yeah, where do we need the length at? What position?
I feel like guard, you're fine. I feel you got to address the wings.
Yeah, it's on the perimeter.
Yeah, you got to address small forward for sure. Because who knows how much longer Bojan can keep up his shooting splits. I don't know if the Pistons really believe Gabriel Procida is the second coming to Bojan, even though he is really athletic and he is putting some good games together over in Europe. But we've kind of really struck out with European prospects.
Yeah, my dream scenario for Gabriel Procida is the Pistons are good. They're like an Eastern Conference Finals team. They go to the Eastern Conference Finals twice. They're like, man, the Pistons just need somebody to step up. Who's it going to be? Da-da-da-da. Then, his national song plays while he flies in. I imagine he's wearing a nice suit, probably like the flag, like a cape from his homeland. And then just comes to Detroit and tears it up and we win the NBA Finals. That's what I hope happens for Gabriel Procida.
It reminds me of Mario Hezonja so much.
Yeah, dude.
I think he's a better shooter than Mario Hezonja.
Oh, yeah.
He's a way better shooter, and he's a little bit taller. But I definitely think, to Big Fella Mike's point, I think small forward and power forward is what you should look for in the draft if you're looking for position. But hey, it's a lottery. The Pistons are sitting at the second worst record in the NBA, so if the season ends of the day, you're looking guaranteed a top 6 pick. So you're in good position to get another pick. I told you, people get so pissed at Casey, but I've been telling you, he's the ultimate tank commander. He will
I
put you in a position to get another top pick.
Yeah, I had a friend text me. He's like, dude, Casey needs to go. I'm like, he's your best chance at a top 5 pick. He's like, dude, I'd rather see a young guy. I'm like, dude, if you have a chance to get a top 5 pick in this year's NBA draft class, you do everything you can to get that top 5 pick in this year's NBA draft class. If that means I, as a Pistons fan, got to sit through another 82 game season of watching Dwayne Casey and his rotations, but I get a top 5 pick out of it, I will do it happily.
So this is I was thinking about this, and I'm glad Big Fella Mike actually did comment it. I didn't really even like want to put it out there earlier in the podcast, but oh, wrong one. He's commenting so much. Wonder if Cade goes to 3. He's saying the small forward if we get Scoot Henderson. So you'd have Scoot at the point, Jaden Ivey at shooting guard, and Cade at small forward.
I thought that was kind of the reason why they drafted Cade, because he has that position versatility where he could play 1 through 3. I mean, even if he's technically listed as the 3, he'd probably still bring the ball up and initiate the offense, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's 1 inch shorter than Jason Tatum.
Yeah. My biggest fear though is for the Pistons drafting too many guys that need the ball in their hands, and it starts to take away, you know, parts of Cade's game that make him special, because now he's, you know, you're basically dumbing down the way he plays basketball. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so funny. I've seen so many people get so upset that they're like, "Why would the Pistons take another point guard in this draft?" Right? And it's like, you're not gonna pass. Like if you're at 2, you're not passing on Scoot Henderson. You're just not. You can draft him, see if another team wants to trade up for him, which that's a possibility. Or you just roll the dice and figure it out later. Like that's a good problem to have. To have a high level, you know, prospect coming out of the draft on your basketball team. Like you're not just gonna pass and go by position and saying, "Oh, yeah, I don't want Scoot Henderson. Give me Tariq Whitehead or Amin Thompson." Like you're just not gonna do that, because there's tiers to it. Like Victor and Scooter up here, everyone else is down here.
Yep.
Like you got to look at it that way.
And also too, I mean, like if you draft Scoot, and I know people don't want to hear this, but I mean, it opens up the possibility of trading someone else, you know, like if Scoot really is the real deal, and let's say the Pistons get him and it's not working as we all think with Cade, Ivy, and Scoot, but they all 3 are phenomenal, you might trade the weakest of the 3 and get someone else back in return. That's what drafting a Scoot Henderson allows you to do, to eventually make your team even more competitive, because now you have 2 super talented players at one position and you can afford to get rid of one of them.
That, and like you may get rid of Killian Hayes too. You got to think about that. Like you're obviously not going to have Scoot Henderson off the bench.
Yeah.
Jaden Ivey, you're not going to have off the bench. Like it's such a good problem to have, and it's so interesting. And I know we're probably going to have conversations about it, because I think Pistons fans, once they, you know, figure out, okay, the season's lost, the season's over, they're going to start getting into, you know, these draft prospects and start, you know, watching film on them on YouTube, and, you know, watching games as we get closer to March Madness. Like there's so much, like what I would encourage Pistons fans to do is be really locked into this college basketball season, because there's a lot of good prospects. I mean, freaking Jet Howard could be a lottery pick this year if he keeps playing the way he's playing. Like there's so many good players coming out of this year's draft class.
Yeah, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a good one. This is the year you want to have a top 5 pick. You really do. It's a deep class, man. You can do and we know Troy Weaver, man. You get a top 5 pick, he might end up with like 4 picks out of this class. You know what I'm saying? Like just something unreal where he's like, hey, yeah, you can have Scoot Henderson, but I'm going to need this first and this first so I can load up on some talent. You never know what with Troy Weaver, what he can do.
Honestly, I mean, Orlando's got 2 picks in the top 10 because Chicago's playing like shit.
Yep.
Because of the Victor, not Victor. I went straight to Victor, to Nikola Vucevic trade that they had with them. So, I mean, Orlando could definitely jump the Pistons, but it'll be interesting to see. It really will.
It will. It really will. It's gonna be a fun year. Yeah, should I close this off?
Yeah, we've been on for an hour and a half. I did not think that we'd have an hour and a half worth of topics, but here we are.
Dude, yeah, it was fun, man. I appreciate everybody watching on the live stream. It was really cool. Appreciate all of you guys. But thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk podcast. Do us each a favor. Follow me at Lance Caprosi on Twitter. Then follow my co-host Anthony, if you're not already, at Pistons Talk across all social media platforms. And then do us the biggest favor of the night. Go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, but more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Peace.